Well, hello. Welcome to this episode of Shirley Talk. And today we have the infamous, the well-known Shaun Wallace with Soul Circus here. Thank you, Shaun, for coming into the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
We always get this way started. Shaun, are you a doctor or in the medical profession and anything whatsoever? Nurse? Anything at all? Psychiatrist?
No, I've had a prostate exam before, but no.
That's close. That's close. Does that give you the ability to give medical advice?
Absolutely.
You could probably talk about it for sure. Kellye, are you a doctor or a nurse or attorney, anything like that?
Nope, nothing.
Yeah, so we point that out because none of us are highly paid professionals in the medical field or anything for that matter. So we point that out because this is for, I hate to call it entertainment purposes only, but that's what it's for. It's to entertain. It's to try and potentially educate. But if you hear something on our show, please get medical and legal and accounting advice. So we just wanted to wrap that up. So thanks for coming today, Shaun. We've talked quite a bit about cancer, and your dad, how long ago was it that he passed from cancer?
By the way, I want to preface this by thank you for doing that disclaimer because I'm very opinionated, especially when it comes to cancer and the like. So seek legal advice and medical advice no matter what you hear come out of my mouth.
You know, and today it's crazy how many people will sue you for something, and we just want to put that out there. We do it at the beginning of every one because it's insane. Somebody will hear us, they'll do it and say Mike and Shaun and Kellye from Shirley's Way told me to do this. So anyway, we just like to preface.
Yeah, and
that.
you can send all questions or legal to my attorney, Mr. Jason Nemus over at Commonwealth Law Office. By the way, don't send it to me. I don't want to see it.
Isn't he a politician?
He is. Yeah, he's
okay.
also my attorney.
Well, we need to get a hold of him one day too. So that'd be great.
Yeah, or Steve Long. He's my attorney too. Steve's a great friend. But so anyway, yes, Dad passed away a year ago in May.
Okay. From
cancer. He had lung cancer. By the time they found out that he had lung cancer, it had spread to multiple organs, the liver, and just all over the place. And his bones were completely eaten through.
Yeah.
So he was in bad shape when they found out.
And he was your guitar player for the longest time, isn't that correct?
He was a guitar player. He was an incredible vocalist.
Yeah.
So yeah, he played with me. We played together for at least 10 years before.
We started the band, you or him?
I started the band with a bass player, a friend of mine at the time. And then Dad was actually the second guitar player that came in. I had to fire the first one pretty quick. It didn't work out. So I brought Dad in as a temporary guitar player until I found somebody else. And he ended up just sticking. So,
yeah. I love, well, actually, you all played for several events. So I love anytime y'all play. It's a lot of fun and full of energy. But, you know, he reminds me of one of the tough old guys that would never complain about anything. You know, he probably had pain for many years and just kind of wrote it off. So by the time they found it, was he pretty high up, like stage 4?
Stage 4 lung, stage 4 bone, stage 3 liver, stage 2 lymph node. It was so advanced, like in his bones, that when he was on the mower that summer before he got diagnosed, he always carried my son Deacon. He would carry on the lawnmower and mow together, and he sneezed and broke his ribs and 3 of his ribs, and literally he broke them because they were eaten through with cancer. When he got diagnosed, they wouldn't let him leave the hospital because his femur was about to break. It had eaten through his femur, and he was playing guitar in 110-degree heat all summer long with his bones completely riddled with cancer.
Well, I mean,
tough old bird.
I was going to say, I say this with love. He was excuse my language, he was a tough old bastard in a good way. I mean, somebody to deal with that just is unbelievable. So they found it very far in advance. Mm-hmm. And, but did he ever show signs? Was he sick before any of that all the time? Was he just literally run down? I mean, he had to have seen something that would have.
We tried, even the boys in the band, the family and the boys in the band were like, Steve, you need to go to the hospital. There's something not quite right. You know, he was always limping. He was always tired. For a long time, up until he retired, he was diagnosed in July. He retired in May. And, before that July, and he was working 6 days a week, 6:30 in the morning, every morning, 6 days a week. And then he would play music 3 or 4 nights a week. So he was always tired, but that was kind of understandable as a 66, 67.
Constantly going. Yeah.
But then once he retired, he never really got untired.
Yeah.
And I remember that I actually posted something on Facebook yesterday of a gig that we had from 2 years ago today. And we were at 4th Street Live, and he was sitting down before the gig, and he just didn't have any energy at all, and it was just very lethargic. very pale, very pasty. To be perfectly honest with you, I figured that something was wrong with his liver. I thought that when the night we played a gig late July in 2019 in LaGrange for their, I don't know, their city party or whatever, and it was 105 degrees. It was that's without the humidity. It was hot, and about halfway through the show, he had to sit down to play guitar, and that's not like my dad. I had to hand him his guitar, and when he got off stage, at the end of the night, we finished the last lick, and I told him, I said, just go home. I carried him off the stage. It was like 6 or 7 steps. I carried him off the stage, put him in his car, told him to go home. I said, I'll pack your gear up. Called him the next morning. I said, you're fired from the band, first of all, until you figure out what's wrong. It's like, I've already got a fill-in for you tonight. This was a Saturday night. I said, so you go find out what's wrong. He said, I believe you're right. Well, you really know my dad's sick. He let my mom drive him to immediate care. It's the second time in 52 years he let my mom drive. And so when we were there, they told him he needed to go to the emergency room. Something was seriously wrong, and I met him there, and that's when the world just got flipped upside down. So it was a bad sequence.
Yeah. So y'all only knew for like 6 months, right?
I think it was about 9 months is what it was when he was diagnosed from when he actually passed. Okay. So yeah, it was
quick.
It was pretty quick, but really, he didn't actually die of the cancer. He died because he was done. And he willed himself to die within a week. After he told us that he was done, he was basically skin and bones from the treatments. You know, they hit him as hard as they could because he was so tough. And they had actually stopped the growth of the cancer. It wasn't actually actively growing anymore. It wasn't really receding, but it wasn't growing.
But in that many places,
And he just said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I said, I don't blame you. And then he just basically starved and thirsted himself to death. So
yeah, we covered an episode about that. You know, when people are done, they're done. It's their decision.
He was done.
Yeah, and there's nothing, and it's not right that if you're trying to talk people out of it, it's because of your own selfishness.
Absolutely.
Because what these people go through, the torture, and Kellye, you saw it. Her mom died from pancreatic cancer, and she turned yellow. So when it's funny, when you thought it was his liver, you know, I'm sure there would have been some sort of jaundice look to him if
his skin color wasn't right.
Yeah,
it was obvious.
Yeah, she noticed it because her mom was turning yellow.
Yeah, she started glowing. Yeah, that's not right.
No, absolutely.
But it's a personal decision, and I see these people all the time. Keep fighting, and you know that's a punch in the gut to somebody that's sick, especially somebody that's so far along like your dad, because you know there's not as you want quality, not quantity, and if you can't have quality of life, then that person has to make that decision.
It's amazing too. As a side note on that, these older cats, this older generation, the boomers and older. They believe in their doctors so much. There's never any questioning. They don't question the doctors. They don't ask questions. They just. My dad honestly believed he was going to get better in the beginning. Yeah. Of course, you know, my wife and I we knew differently. We knew they was just too far gone, unless there was some magical immunotherapy. Because my cousin actually was on death's door too with cancer. And immunotherapy came in and swooped him up at the last second and saved his life. He's still alive, and that's been 10 years.
Wow.
So that was a success story. So unless there was some sort of phenomenal immunotherapy that would match up with his cell structure, we knew that this was the writing on the wall. He may have a year tops, and that's because it was so slow growing in certain areas. He could have had cancer for 2-3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Or longer.
To spread that far and be that far advanced, I guarantee you, he was probably having signs and just wrote it off as, I'm just old and I'm getting tired.
Arthritis. His dad was bedridden with arthritis in his late 60s. So my dad figured he had arthritis, and he's not the kind of guy to go to the doctor to confirm it.
No, we talked to somebody the other day, and they just kept having back pain.
Yep.
And it ended up being pancreatic cancer, and they didn't live very long at all. But so many of us have back pain. We just write it off as, I'm getting older. I was complaining the other day on Facebook about my ankle. You know, I got out of the dang car, and the ankle, I don't know what happened. The thing popped, and I walked for 6 hours. But,
right.
You know, who would have ever think that something like that? I've heard of that in femurs. It's funny you say that. I've heard of somebody with cancer in the femur, and they just thought their legs were sore all the time.
Yep. It completely ate through his left femur was completely eaten through.
Yeah, you talk about these that generation of people. My mom was the same way. You know, when the doctor told her she had cancer, and the first doctor told her, and we actually had an interview with him. I got to sit down and talk with him and told him, I didn't say anything bad to him at the time, but I did in my head. I just told him, I said, I thought you were giving up on her. I thought you just didn't want to have time to work with her because of the cancer she had. And I said, you were right. But my mom, when he told her there was probably nothing they were going to do, I said, that's BS. You go get a second opinion. But she was like your dad. Well, I believe my doctor.
That's right.
You know, I don't want to hurt his feelings by going to talk to another doctor. And that was her opinion. Didn't your mom kind of do the same thing? She didn't want to go anyplace else?
Yeah, she wanted to stay close to the South End.
Because she liked her doctor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, she's like, nobody will come visit me if I go somewhere else far away.
My dad's oncologist was great, Dr. Williams. Patrick Williams. He was fantastic. Very great guy, very knowledgeable, cutting edge. But, you know, I went to Dad's meetings with him, and I suggested, you know, maybe we should go to a place somebody suggested me in Nashville. And Dr. Williams was like, of course, you should always get a second opinion. And Dad's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm staying right here. You know, I believe in Dr. Williams. And I said, well, I do too. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, maybe there's something out there that's a different treatment path that Dr. Williams doesn't do, or that's just the way they are.
Yeah, I've had discussions with doctors, and there's so much information out there. You know, I thought, you know, everybody's got to read the same stuff. All oncology doctors have to read the same stuff. They have to be, but it's not true.
They don't.
There's so much information that they might get on the West Coast or someplace, new treatments that doctors here or doctors out there might not know anything about. And there's probably a public database, but I can't imagine how much data is in that
right.
data.
Yeah, Dr. Williams, funny is Dr. Williams is now my oncologist. I don't have cancer, but, you know, I've recent studies say that 1 in 2 people in America, in the United States, are going to have cancer. So I'm trying to head it off at the pass.
So what do you go just for regular physicals, and he kind of keeps an eye on things, or what?
Scan once a year. He looks at my blood levels, and you know, he's also a blood doctor, so which is great for any other thing that pops up. He can help figure that stuff out pretty quick too. So he's a great guy. He's a great doctor. You know, and yes, I do believe in him. But if something, you know, really big went down, I guarantee you that I would take it upon myself to get a second or third opinion, just based upon I want to live. I've got a 4-year-old son. I don't want anything to happen, and you know, I want to be around as long as I can. But 1 in 2 people, you know, they're going to have cancer.
I know,
and that's, you know, head it off the pass. Go get your physicals. You know, force a doctor to read your blood tests and, you know, your results and your. There's not what you see on your My Chart is not necessarily the whole story. So each one of those the ABVs and all of the individual little blood tests that you see have different sections that they see. They see those broken down by this and that and this and that. Force them to read it. If you think something's wrong, if you feel something is wrong with you, force them to look into it.
Yeah.
Push the envelope. I pushed the envelope. I hadn't been to the doctor in 20 some odd years before Dad got sick. Well, after Dad passed away, I went and got a scan, blood tests, the whole nine, and I forced the envelope. I found a couple other things that wasn't quite perfect about me. I had, you know, so you know but like I have a little bit of an enlarged spleen, which I got taken care of, and that was basically due to some sort of I had not like in my intestines, I had like an infection that I didn't know about, basically diverticulosis. So they took care of all that stuff for me, which is great. But
yeah.
You know, I forced the envelope. I pushed. I want to know. I want to know what's wrong with me so I can stick around. Let's fix it if there's a problem.
Just about anybody that's had cancer or anybody that's dealt with any medical condition, they say you got to be your own advocate, because doctors are going to look at numbers and they're all great. So I don't want to, but one increase in a blood test could prove or show or be something that another doctor might not think about. But
right.
if you don't get these baseline tests to have something to start with, is what I've been told.
That's right.
So you have your baseline tests. That way, if you go back in 6 months, they do the same tests and they see an increase or a decrease in something, they know something's out of whack.
That's right.
But most of these baby boomers, and you know, a lot of us, I'm not a baby boomer, but we don't go to the doctor just because we feel good and we think we're fine.
Yeah.
But you have to get those baseline tests started, so if something does majorly go wrong, they got something that they can look at and base it off of.
Well, we don't stay young and invincible forever.
I feel like we are, except for my bones, man. I tell you, I crack all the time.
That's crazy.
Well, yeah, it's yeah, he lost quite a bit of weight, right?
Yeah, I think you know, when he started losing weight due to the cancer, he was actually dieting at the time. and he took the weight off quick.
Yeah.
And it was because of the cancer, really. I mean, he was dieting, right? Because he knew he needed to lose weight. He got up to 220, which was really heavy for my dad, really heavy. And he lost a bunch of weight really fast. And matter of fact, my drummer said, "Steve, how did you lose weight that fast? Something's off with that." Mm-hmm. And Dad's like, "No, I can just do that." No. And then, of course, as the treatments went on, he wouldn't eat. And I think he was probably down. I had, not to get too into it, but his last week or two, I had to carry him. So, a lot. So, I mean, he was probably, I would think 115, 120 pounds.
Yeah.
So he probably lost about 100 pounds throughout the whole process and about within a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Only reason I bring that up is I'm, again, not medical advice. So,
don't get cancer to lose weight. That's not a good.
Or if you lose a bunch of weight, don't freak out. But I hate to say that it's created a monster in me, because when I go to the doctor, I'll say, "Look, doc, I'm not feeling good. Are you sure we don't need to run a test to make sure that I don't have some sort of cancer?" And I'm a little freaked out. My mom died from it. My dad had it, and he looks at me and he said, "Are you losing weight?" And I said, "No, actually I've gained weight." He goes, "That's what I thought." He said, "A sure sign, a almost positive sign, if you have a drastic weight loss and you're doing nothing to lose weight, if you have a drastic weight loss, that's when we'll start looking for other signs of things that might be going wrong with you medically." So I've seen people that's lost 20, 30 pounds just like that, and they're like, "I'm not doing anything, but sitting on the couch." Well, you need to go to the doctor.
Right,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that, it's funny that you say that, and weight loss obviously is a sign. A lot of unexplained fatigue that I've noticed it could be a sign. Pain, like you said, back pain, any kind of pain that persists and lasts a long period of time, you should definitely get that checked out. It was something that Dr. Williams told me when Dad was sick. He said that, soon we think that most types of cancer we'll be able to treat like diabetes. Years ago, diabetes was pretty much a death sentence. So it's come along so far now that they regulate it. Of course, that is also telling of the way of the industry side of it, right? So they make a lot of money on diabetes treatment. Mm-hmm. And, not to switch the subject too drastic, but that is the white elephant in the room, right? The giant elephant that we need to discuss is that treating cancer, ongoing treatment for cancer, is a huge moneymaker for the pharmaceutical industry and the industry as a whole. And it's not really your frontline doctors and your nurses that are responsible for either a cure or treatments. It's the research labs that are funded by organizations and your pharmaceutical companies. Yeah. So, we all want a cure for cancer, and I understand there's a lot of moving parts with that and different cell structures, and I get that, right? But we all want a cure for cancer, and to treat someone long term, whether they last 10 years or 15 years or whatever with cancer.
They're putting you on a payment plan.
They're putting you on a payment plan. They're putting somebody on a payment plan, whether you pay for it or not.
I would argue that most doctors and nurses are probably half aware of the cost of treatments, but it's so far embedded down the system that they're not aware of what it truly costs. They're just there to try and save your life.
That's right.
So when they sign you up for something, I would hope to think they're not getting some, and I've read articles where some shady doctors were getting kickbacks on prescribing certain amounts of chemo, and I hope they lost their license and they're buried somewhere. But 99.9% of the doctors are awesome human beings that just really want to cure you.
Absolutely.
So they're not there to sign you up for 30 rounds of chemo because they're getting a 20% commission off of that. No. I don't believe that. But I do think the pharmaceutical companies are all paid on commission and things, and they're making a killing, which is good for them. But I had a doctor once, and I won't say who, but we started talking about the cure for cancer, and he said, "I foresee a cure for cancer within the next 5 years." He said, "But can people afford it?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I would venture to say that the cancer cure would probably be in excess of $1 million." Now think about that. Could you write a check for $1 million?
The money making aspect of it, there is no money really in a cure unless you charge an exorbitant amount of money like that. So instead of that, they'll continue to just treat you over and over and over again at a high cost every month or whatever your prescriptions cost or whatever. I mean, it's not going to be like a COVID vaccine.
No.
They're not going to give you 2 shots and you're supposedly done. Well, now it's only 6 months or 9 months, but still.
Now we have to look at the third shot.
Again,
Yeah.
right? But still, with cancer, it's the fact that it is such a huge, well-oiled money-making machine for the companies. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not our doctors and our nurses.
No, I don't think it had anything to do with it.
They're doing everything that they can with what they're given from the people that do the research, and that's just the way that it is.
Yeah,
that's the trickle down. The doctors don't have time to look for their own cure because they're busy treating 12, 14, 15 patients at a time, and most of those people they're trying to keep alive.
Yeah, no, I don't for one think that most doctors are doing it for that. They're trying to save people's lives. You
Absolutely.
know, in the perfect world, if we had, and I bring this up to a few different politicians that I know, but we're trying to rally some people around the cost of being sick and how do you handle that? You know, when we got involved with this, before my mom died, had several people come by and talk about the horrible stories of people who were sick with cancer that couldn't afford the basic necessities of life. And I'm talking food, utility bills, stuff like that. And that's why we got started. But there has to be a different way. You know, we raising money and giving away is good, but there has to be a different way. And, you know, with COVID, I think we kind of proved that people's bills could be on hold. And I'm not for wiping out debt and all that stuff. If you owe it, you should pay it. But when somebody's sick and can't work, what's your thoughts on how we should maybe approach that? My thought is taking some way, somehow, putting people's bills on hold for 6 months. And, you know, I don't know if that would be possible, but there's got to be something.
Well, first of all, how do you pick and choose who gets everything paid for and who doesn't?
Yeah.
And that's what the government basically did with COVID. So they picked and choose because you may have COVID or you're sick with COVID with a ridiculously high survival rate. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but
I agree with you. I'm kind of bitter about the whole thing myself.
So with a ridiculously high survival rate, the only thing about COVID was super contagious. The hospitals didn't want to get overwhelmed. That's why we shut everything down. They knew,
and they never got overwhelmed.
A doctor told me, he said, he told me at the beginning of COVID, he said, guess what? You're going to get COVID. He said, your family's going to get COVID. Everybody's going to get COVID. He's like, we just want to slow it. We don't want it to all happen at once because we'll be inundated, right? Mm-hmm. So, but how does the government pick and choose who gets to be off work for what, and who's not going to have to pay for what shot and what not, and without looking at the pandemic that is cancer? 1 and 2.
Yeah.
1 and 2.
I don't remember the numbers, and I'm probably going to be off, but it seems like last time I looked, there was 600,000 or 700,000 people that died from cancer last year.
It's a lot of folks.
And that happens every year. Every year. So to me, that's just as a big a pandemic as COVID. I mean, why are these people dying from this
Well, it's bigger
disease?
because it's prolonged. So, yeah. I mean, we're talking about
suffering is
how many
horrible.
people have died from cancer over the past, 100, 500 years.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Billions, probably.
Oh, I'm sure. But nobody has really taken a strong stance on it. You know, I don't want to go political, but right before Biden got elected, he took a stance, and I'm going to help find a cure for cancer. But now I look back, seems like Trump said the same thing. But I haven't heard any of them mention it after they got elected.
It's because it sounds awesome.
It does. It sounds good. It really does.
I'm going to find a cure for cancer. Oh, my gosh, get this guy in office right away.
That's exactly right. I think a lot of people looked at it that way, and you hadn't been talked about since.
I know. Well, they get in office, and they feel there's bigger fish to fry. Yeah, or they get talked down off the ledge from pharmaceutical lobbyists that say, "Oh, don't worry, we're working on it." Mm-hmm. Right? Don't worry, we're working on it. We think maybe within 5 years. I've been hearing 5 years now for 15 years.
Oh yeah, yeah. They want to put everybody in a $10,000 a month payment plan for your cancer medication is what they want. But it's I'm not one that believes that the government's going to save all of us, help us, and save all of us and fix all of our problems. I think. If you've got maybe we start with terminal diagnosis. If you've got a terminal diagnosis, you know how many terminal people are evicted every year? I don't, but I guarantee it's probably high.
I'm sure.
If you got a terminal diagnosis from a doctor and they said legitimately you're not going to live more than 3 to 4 months, the mortgage companies and all these places should tack your 4 months of payments onto the very end. So when your estate is sold and their house is sold, then they collect their money.
They collect their money as opposed to eviction.
Yeah, don't evict and throw these people out of their homes.
Don't let them die homeless.
Yeah.
That'd be bad, right?
Exactly right. And, utility bills, they could do the same exact thing.
It sounds incredibly complicated, and I wouldn't, for someone to be able to tackle that, I know that would take a tremendous amount of time, energy, effort, money, in order to be able to figure out how that gets tackled. But we all know that it needs to be tackled. Mm-hmm. I mean, people are going bankrupt because they have cancer, and people are, like you said, they're becoming homeless. They can't feed their families. There's a lot of problems that arise that are secondary problems that people don't even think about when it comes to diseases like cancer. And thank God for organizations like Shirley's Way that are doing everything that they can to help as many people as they can. And, it's not just Shirley's Way. There's a bunch of organizations out there that are trying to help. And they're not just raising funds to research the diseases. They're also helping raise funds to help support people, but not near as many to help support people as there are going to the research.
That's what I was going to say. The only other one that I know in Kentucky that's doing what we're doing is Jill's Wish and Bart Conley. They do the same thing.
Yeah, we've played events for him too.
So us, Shirley's Way and Jill's Wish in Kentucky or Louisville in general are the only two that I know of. Yeah. Everybody else is giving money for research, and God, we need research.
Hey,
but at what point is enough?
Yeah, I want to. Well, of course, where's the cure, right?
Yeah.
So, but I do want to give a quick shout out to Bart. Bart, he put his money where his mouth was. After Jill passed away, and Bart literally became an oncology nurse.
He did.
He put everything he had on hold to become an oncology nurse.
Took him a couple of years to do that.
Yeah, and actually, Dad was on his floor when I would run into Bart. On the oncology floor when Dad was sick, and he was working his way at that time to become a nurse. So,
wow.
Which was really kind of cool. It was good to see a friendly face there anyway.
Oh yeah. Well, it's amazing what he did because Jill passed, to become an oncology nurse, to see where he could, because, as you know, when not everybody's set up to be a caregiver,
right.
Especially men. I mean, women are more apt to be caregiver because it's more in your nature, nurture, however you want to say that. But for him to do that was incredible. But yeah, we've actually talked about doing a joint event one time. It'd be kind of fun.
Oh man, count Soul Circus in, please.
Oh yeah. I mean, we could get the whole city, but they've got the one end of town and we got the other. We could just mesh in the middle and just have a blast.
Yeah, well, I'll meet in the Highlands somewhere.
yeah, that's exactly right.
But Bart definitely did his thing, and Jill's Wish, of course, and Shirley's Way. So many people have posted and so many great things about Shirley's Way, how you all have helped and helped them in binds and helped feed people and helped keep the lights on. And so anyway, big shout out to you guys.
Well, thank you.
And of course, Jill's Wish.
Yeah. But again, there's not enough.
Nope.
I see the American Cancer Society now promoting, they give people rides to treatment. That's great. That's awesome. But they take these large organizations take in millions and millions and millions a year. And I'm hoping it all goes to research. But
they got a lot of people to pay.
Oh, and I'm fine with that. I totally, delving into the charity world, that's just a fact of it.
Right.
You can't get everything for free.
That's right.
But we say this all the time, we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. Why can't an organization that brings that much money carve out a portion of it to go help people to keep the lights on? Which would be really cool. We would love to see that and kind of help with our mission of helping people in that way.
Yeah. What do you think, not to switch roles here and be the host and ask a question, but what do you think the proper approach is? I've thought about it. We've talked about it on the phone numerous times. You've talked to some legislators. I've actually talked to a couple of friends of mine that are legislators. What's your thought process behind that? How do they start that process? I mean, obviously just thinking about it is good, but there needs to be action. What do you think the first step would look like for a legislator?
I had one say that she could probably get us on the floor in Frankfurt to really speak about the cause and the case, which would be a good step, because there's so many affluent people out there that could help that don't understand the problem. And I would say a lot of our legislators are in that position. They probably have pretty good health plans and stuff like that to where if they got sick, I'm not sure it would be an issue for them. So they just don't know about it. And I didn't know about it. Till my mom got sick, I had no idea that there was people in this world who were sick with cancer or any other disease that couldn't afford food. When you got people in this world trying to decide between food or their medication,
Yep.
that's a problem.
That's a problem.
It's a problem. And I think if one of us, I think between the two of us and Bart, I think there's enough of us that could convince these legislators that they at least need to look at the problem. So I think that would be a first step. But I think it's going to take a lot of bird dogging to keep on these legislators to get them to finally give us the platform that we need to talk about the problem.
And I think I've been talking for months that we need to get loud. Mm-hmm. And I think that it needs to be a faceted approach about getting loud. We need to bark a little bit more about a cure.
Yeah.
Somebody's feet need to be held to the fires. There needs to be more pressure for a cure, not just a long-term treatment. Don't get me wrong, immunotherapy is a great breakthrough. I'm happy for immunotherapy. It saved my cousin, and I know it's saving a lot of people's lives.
It's expensive.
But it's expensive, and if you don't have good insurance, you're probably not even going to get it.
Well, some insurances won't even cover immunotherapy.
Right.
So to begin with. So
right. So a cure is one of the ways we need to bark. If the country and the population gets loud about a subject, they're forced to listen. They did about COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the other approach, of course, is changing legislation to aid people in their time of need when there's nothing they can do about it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, my dad, no way in the world he'd have been able to work, and he was tough, and he worked his hind end off his whole life. There's no way he would have been able to work when he was fighting like he was. He was just skin and bones laying in the bed. That's a problem.
Well, to answer your question, I think the first step is to get on the floor of the House or the I don't know enough about politics to even know I know we got to go to Frankfurt, so I know that for sure.
There's a building, and it's got like a round.
We need to be in there.
Sit there, and you need to yell. That's right.
We need to be in there. So we'll take Kellye.
There's a lot of marble and granite in that building, by the way. Yeah. Surely they can.
Did you ever see our picture? I did Gene Simmons, and Kellye did our Ringo Starr, as she calls him.
Yeah, I don't know who he is.
Paul Stanley?
Yeah.
I had a star on my face.
Well, bless your heart.
It was.
So we dress up as Kiss, and we show up at Frankfurt and start demanding people to listen to us about reform. So maybe that's what we do.
Wow.
That would get attention.
That's
at least,
awesome.
So I don't know. I'm always looking for a reason to put makeup on heels on. I guess that ought to say a little bit about me, huh?
I'm not going there.
No judging. Yeah.
No judgment here. I dig it.
Yeah. Well, Shaun, thanks so much for coming in today. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And
thanks for having me.
I'm sure we'll get you in here again one day and see if we've made any progress on these legislators, because I think that's what it's going to take. So maybe if you start with your guy and I'll start a few of them that I know, and
maybe in 6 months we can reconvene and see where we're at.
Let's do that. Yeah. I mean, if we have to storm the Capitol and just to get people's attention, I'm not going to jail, but sometimes I think there's a place for that, but other times I think it's more about laying things out on the table and let people listen and think about it first, and I just don't think that's been done yet. So.
Oh, I would agree. I mean, I'm sure that maybe not the Kentucky House, but I'm sure that many folks have heard about cancer research, and I'm sure they've heard about it before, but I don't think that this approach they've probably not heard too many times, for sure.
We're really willing to. I'm actually going to talk about charitable gaming next week to Frankfurt. So
they're going to love you.
Yeah, depending on how this turns out, we'll go back and start talking about healthcare reform. But yeah, we're going July 22nd to talk about. They told me testify, so I hope I'm not going to be swearing on a book or nothing. But
you probably will
about the benefits.
It's gambling. They want to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. So we'll see if they escort me out in orange. You'll see it on the 6 o'clock news.
Like, hey, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Anybody got bail money?
Can anybody bail me out? Just I'm starting to go or Shirley's Way donation link for that. So
yes.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Shaun. We appreciate it. We'll get you back in here in a few weeks.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. And keep up the good fight, everybody. Just keep doing what you do and 1 foot forward. And if you don't feel right, if something feels off, go see your doctor. Demand to know explanations. Demand that they look into it. It's important. Save your life.
All you tough people out there.
Quit being so tough.
That's right. Go to the doctor. Pay that $50 and go to the doctor. So it could save your life. It really could.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Kellye, how can people help Shirley's Way?
Well, we have 3 raffles a week we do. QueenofHeartsLive.org, JokersWildLive.org, and WheelOfCashLive.org. Mike likes to keep me busy Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
You do such a great job at it.
Oh, yeah. I'm like a TV show host or whatever. No, but those 3 raffles, they're all split the pot, $2 tickets. You can get them online. And then 2021, we're still pushing hard for $1,010 monthly donors. How much is that a month?
10,000, yeah.
Yeah,
You checking
good
my
job.
math.
Yeah, I am. But go to our website at shirleysway.org to learn more.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, everybody. And if you see Soul Circus around, go up and say hi to Shaun. He likes to talk to people and buy him a drink.
Love, peace, and chicken grease, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.